Well, we're back with another episode of Cincinnati Soccer Talk, and we're talking about the match against the New York Red Bull. No, the match was far from flawless. Cincinnati stole their first ever home win at TQL against the New York Red Bull in their MLS home opener of the 2025 season. The stats would show that New York Red Bull had the advantage in most categories, but stats don't always matter with a player like Kevin Denkey wreaking havoc on the Red Bull back line. And in the end, it was Celentano with the clean sheet and Denkey with the game winner on a header reminiscent of GB Falls' double doink in the 2017 game that knocked the Crew out of the Open Cup and put FCC in the national spotlight. This is episode 404 of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. I'm your host, Brian Biedenbach, and I'm here with a great crew tonight to talk about the team we all love and their win against the team we all love to hate. Let's welcome them in. Coach, man, speaking of hate, teams we love to hate, you made a comment about, talking tactics, maybe going a different direction, and the hate mail we received by kicking you out, man. What do you have to say to that?
Listen, if there were unlimited hours in the day, I would just keep on doing all of the things. But, Justin Hoyt is not able to continue because he's working with the club. So we're still trying to figure out what that's going to be. But I think we have some really exciting things in Cincinnati Soccer Talk that it's going to allow me to really get into the tactics of some individual plays and concepts without having to do a whole show all the time. So listeners, stay tuned for that and make sure you're following CST on all the socials so you get that content.
Yeah, in all seriousness, we didn't get any hate mail. We got a lot of love for Coach in that, and people really appreciating talking tactics and what you bring. And so, Coach, we're glad to have you here on the show tonight and just on Monday nights in general. What you bring. So, welcome. We have a new face tonight to Cincinnati Soccer Talk podcast. He's been a listener for a long time. He's always in the chats with with something insightful to say and a good question to ask. Jose, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here with such a distinguished group, guys. I mean, you guys raised the bar, and I told you a while back I was really excited to see there was a show here that talked about soccer, and then I realized these guys know a lot. I mean, I wasn't surprised, but that was an added. So again, happy to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you again. We'll point to Coach on that one. Pronounce your last name for me. Is it Guerra?
Guerra. Yeah, in Spanish, you don't pronounce the U if it's before an E or an I.
Okay.
Unless it has two dots on top of it. So, but in general,
you're getting too technical for me tonight.
I know, yeah.
Let's keep it simple. All right. I was going to say, speaking of keeping it simple, but that would just put you in a bad spot, Nick. So I won't say that. Nick, welcome to the show. It's been a couple weeks since you've been here. Welcome back.
Yeah, happy to be here. A little disappointed that my hate mail in returns to talking tactics did not reach its intended target. So I'll just have to get the right address next time. But guys, soccer's back at home at TQL Stadium. There's a lot to be happy about there.
There is a lot to be happy about, and it was a win, which we're going to dive into tonight. But before we do, we want to thank our great sponsor, Apollo Home. And I'll tell you what, guys, I don't know what the temperature's like in Cincinnati right now, but it was 50 degrees up here in Fort Wayne. So this read about temperatures plummeting, we need to shift that to, have an Apollo Home out to help you prepare for the lovely spring weather and getting things cleaned up and getting your system ready. Peace of mind is worth the $29 tune-up. So get our great sponsor on your schedule soon. Guys, let's start with, we put a post out there, and we want to do this a little bit more often. So if you're listening, if you're watching, if you listen after the fact, we want to just get some fan interaction on our socials a little bit more intentionally. And so we put out a question. We were asking for some responses to the match, and I thought I'd just read a few that came in and see what you guys think of these responses. Let's, reactors are all the rage on YouTube right now. So if we can get reactors reacting to the reactions, I think maybe we have something here on Cincinnati Soccer Talk. So Ryan Sparks on Facebook, he says, I need to find someone. So if you're listening to this, I need to find someone to find the guy who appeared to take a firework off the face during the pregame festivities on the side opposite of the Bailey. Did you guys see that? Were you guys at the match? Did you see what somebody hit in the face with a firework?
Well, I was at the match, and I was actually recording that whole fireworks show, but I didn't see that at that time. I was more
The fireworks up in the
distracted,
air, though, or were you watching down low?
I set the camera at the maximum, panoramic.
Okay.
So I was just watching the whole thing and kind of moving I had the camera still. I was looking around. Oh, this is so cool. I only found out about this, I think today, that somebody actually posted a video of that incident. I mean, the guy was right next to the fireworks.
Oh man, was he one of the guys on the field working the show? Is that it? Wasn't
I
somebody in
think
the
so.
stands?
Yes.
Okay.
I think
All right.
so.
Well, hey, let's just give a shout out to one of the pyro guys. Here we go, Jeff Tebbets. Wow, got hit in the line of fire. So hope he's okay. Hope he is okay. That was the first I had heard of that. Joseph, is it Pipitone? Am I saying that right? He's been a long time listener and commenter on the show. Says beautiful pre-match show, despite the guy getting hit in the face with a firework. It was awesome. Randy Spalding on X says we're so back. We'll talk about that a little bit more tonight. But Nick, what do you think about that? Are we back?
Back status is yes. Back status equals so, as the kids would say. I assume the kids would say that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just good to see this team after all the speculation and roster turnover and excitement over Kevin Denkey and then questions over Lucho and then questions over Luca and then Evander coming. Is he going to be here or not? It was fine. It was good to just finally see everybody on the pitch as is. This is what the team looks like for right now. This is what you're going to get. A little concerns over the first game we'll talk about here in a little bit, but it's just good to see the team back on the field.
No doubt. No doubt. Kevin on Blue Sky at Cincy Till I Die. I think I spelled that wrong. Cincy Till I Die on Blue Sky. He says throwing Orishano back into this attack feels a bit unfair to the rest of the league's defenders. Give them time to gel and we'll be flying, coach. What do you think about that?
Yeah, man, the way Kubo was able to get on the ball in space over and over again, leading the team with 10 progressive receptions, dropping just off the back line. But then because he's Yuya Kubo, he often would turn and stumble a little bit and then either turn it over or have to cut it back and just play square. So adding a guy like Orishano who can legit drive the ball forward and that the defenses have to respect basically anytime he touches the ball, he might shoot, can really add a lot. It's fun to think about. Let's just wait to see if and when it happens.
That's
just
right.
wait until Brenner's back out there with him.
Oh man. Yeah, we'll talk about that later on in the show. But Orishano's a guy that he's a guy that's going to square you up, coach. He's going to look you in the eye and be like, "You think you can keep up with me? All right, let's go." And he's going to have the ball at his feet. He's going to go blow by you. So he'll be exciting to see in this attacking trio once he gets in or wherever he ends up on the pitch. And then All in Jest 24 on Blue Sky. We'll end with this one. Just says it's going to be a fun season. And I agree with that. What we've seen so far, we've got a lot to look forward to. Guys that aren't gelling quite yet 100% and guys we haven't seen on the pitch at all yet that I think are going to bring some exciting dynamics to this team. So, guys, let's talk about this first match against the New York Red Bull at home at TQL Stadium. It was a 1-0 scoreline. It's from what I understand, and we said it in the opener, it's our first win at TQL against New York Red Bull, and it's exciting to come in the season opener this year. Just disappointed, in that 1-0 scoreline. Wish it would have been a little bit more, but we end up with 1-0 scoreline. Kevin Denkey with the 70th minute. Doink header over Coronel. It was such a terrible play. I thought goalkeeping play that allowed him in there, but it was fantastic. It was a dangerous ball, assist from Yedlin from midfield. We saw starts from Denkey and Evander and Lucas Engel again. Hadabi and Flores get the start in the back line. Guys, I think now's a good time. We used to start the show with some best and worst, and I thought maybe now's a good time to just interject our best and worst. Now that we've talked a little bit about the match, we'll dig into it a little bit deeper. Nick, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, best. I said it earlier. Soccer's back at TQL Stadium. For me, being in the crowd, it was just good to be there again, to see the pregame supporters march into the stadium, to see them coming out on the field, to see the, pomp and circumstance of the pre-show. sorry to the one pyro guy who got hit. I didn't know that before I wrote how great the pre-show was. So if you're listening, stay strong. It's just good to, see the atmosphere of a full stadium again, so there's a lot to celebrate there. That's my best. For worst, yeah, there's still question marks, I think, about this team's chemistry early on. Question marks that I'm sure are going to get answered with more games, but there's a lot of kinks to work out. I think especially in that final attacking third, we saw some really good moments in there, but we also saw a lot of moments where it kind of just felt like they were kicking the ball into dead space. We would have a good break followed by, a couple of passes around, not looking, players not really sure where to progress the ball to next. I think that's going to work itself out with more time and more chemistry. As somebody pointed out, Evander and Kevin Denkey had 2 practices to work together up until this point. So I think it's going to get resolved, but yeah, a little bit of a slow start in terms of offense in game 1.
Yeah. No, I think those are good takes. I'm excited the soccer's back too. So that's a good best there. Jose, let's start with your best.
One of the things I really liked was how the team, more players were touching the ball and progressing it. I mean, it wasn't go through Lucho. It was different takes. I mean, on the left, on the right, through the middle. There were combinations among players that we have seen before, but maybe it was just my excitement that the season had started, but I just sensed that there was more of that going on. I mean, that there were more, crosses into the box or within the box. So I saw more of a team effort versus how do we get the ball to Lucho? Not that the ball always went through Lucho, but everybody knows how important that guy was. And I think now without him, all the other pieces are stepping up. I know we're not talking about the Motagua game last week, but we saw Pavel Buca just step up tremendously in that game. He stepped up again this game, but I think, he was a little erratic, but I think that will come. Now, my worst was the finishing in the last third was, not good, but I think a lot of opportunities were created up there. I think as the team gels, as they get more used to the system, we might start seeing some serious scoring. So best and worst.
Yeah. Coach, before we get to your best and worst, I want to just invite, we've got some best and worst coming in on the chat. So I want to visit some of those as we go. But Coach, let me toss it to you. If you've got more, drop them in the chat. We'll throw them up here on the screen and talk about them here in just a moment.
Yeah, my best is something that I think we mentioned this, whether FCC hasn't beat Red Bull at home or Rupesh says maybe once in the playoffs. This might be the first regular season win. One of the main reasons is Red Bull always outworks FC Cincinnati when it comes to that intensity, winning the second balls. They're not afraid to just kick it long because they understand that even if you are able to settle the ball, they're going to be right down your throat and they're going to win it. Or if you head it away, they're going to win the second ball. That was not present on Saturday. I thought FC Cincinnati's intensity and ability to go after the second ball, especially that ability, every first deflection, there was an FCC guy at least challenging for that second ball. Certainly that created some hectic collisions. Let's just say somebody mentioned in the chat that maybe Obi could have gotten a red card. I disagree that it should have. But he did come in a little bit late with some studs, but that's the kind of thing, especially in MLS, that you have to do, especially playing against the Red Bulls. So I think that effort and intensity, we'll talk about a little bit how it kind of waned from time to time, but overall it was much better than when we played Red Bull in the past. My worst is simply because I don't think there's a lot to be unhappy about. There's a lot of little things to get better, but my worst is just looking at this roster and seeing that the depth is still not quite there where we need it to be, especially for these double game weeks. Got Motagua on Wednesday and then Philly on Saturday, looking at if things go as they should, playing Tigres, and not having some of these pieces. We expected Matt Miazga and Nick Hagland to be slow back. We didn't expect, Dado Valenzuela to not be around. We didn't expect Orshano to not be around, things like that. So not having that depth right in this part of the season where it feels like, man, I really wish we did, is my worst.
With a tough schedule to start too. I think that's the big thing.
No doubt, no doubt. And it's fun that we can be in a place to get picky about our worst, right? I think, think back to the days when everything was bad and everything was a worst. And we've got a team coming out with 2 wins to start the season. And we've talked about that this may be, once everybody's healthy, the deepest team that we've had in Cincinnati. And now for that to be our worst, that we're like, it might be, we still need some depth. I think we're in a good spot. I want to get to some of these best and worst here. Rupesh says that other than Denkey, I would say Yedlin and Engel were best, and worst sloppy passing by the whole team. We've mentioned that. I wonder how much the conditions had to play in that, and B, just the travel from Honduras back to Cincinnati just a few days later playing. We'll talk maybe a little bit more about that later. We've got a from Wolfster. Brandon says it wasn't that cold. It's his best, and his worst is he wants to see more build-up play, which again I think we'll see more of as we go. Coach, you referred to the OB tackle potentially getting a red card. That was from David Moore. He says hold-up play and footwork by Denkey. I will say, Denkey's looked good. His footwork. We said that on the previous show, having a striker that can dribble players, having a striker that can hold the ball long enough for another guy to get downfield for him. He looked really good cutting the ball in the middle. And so I'm excited to see what he brings. So guys, thanks for your best and worst. I'll just jump in and say my best. Man, again, as a goalkeeper, I watch goalkeeper play. I think Celentano is playing with a lot of confidence right now, which is good to see without Matt Miazga in front of him. He looked a little shaky last year when Miazga went down. But the play where he just kind of flipped the ball up over
that was awesome.
Valencia, is that who it was?
Yeah, that was awesome.
I loved seeing that. I don't know that I love seeing my goalkeeper do that, but I loved seeing that confidence that, I got you, right? And ran around, got the ball. So I love my best is Celentano playing with confidence. My worst is we only sent New York home down a goal. Gosh, I wish we could have had more. We had our chances, and we'll talk about that coming up. But for this next segment, we're bringing in a guest here from Nacion FCC. You heard him on our live show at Grainworks. His name is Alejandro Delgado. Alejandro, welcome to Cincinnati Soccer Talk, my friend.
Again, it's just an honor to just be surrounded with the greatness of soccer right here, like Jose said. Now, can I say my best and worst?
Absolutely. Tell us your best and worst.
I can't believe nobody said this one, but my best is seeing John Harkes being recognized after the way he left in the first season. And I guess because it's not televised, nobody was aware that he was the first guy pulling the sword. But it was nice to see him back, I guess, in semi-good graces with the team. And my worst will be the fact that we're playing Denkey or Denkey too far away from the box. He had to hold back way past the midfielder line sometimes. And I think once we get it in front of the box, we will start seeing tons of goals. He was way back. I mean, he got to hold up the stuff. He was sometimes the guy initiating the play. He got one great pass for Lucas Engel that was coming from a corner. They had to shoot with the reverse leg and a couple of those. He got a great connection with Corey Bird. I can't believe I'm saying this, but he was great connection with Bird but he was too far out from the box where I think he'll be the most dangerous. And thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Glad to have you here. I just want to start with the question. I think everybody's going to throw some questions at you here, but I wanted to start with this one because we did talk to you about 5 weeks ago at our live show at Grainworks. And at that point, there was a lot of uncertainty with the Cincinnati's roster. And I remember talking with you specifically about how this team is going to finish. And the question, I think, was, where do they need to finish to make you happy? Right. It was something along that line. And you said, we know what winning looks like. I believe your answer to that was, we're not happy unless they bring home a trophy. Yes. Okay. So something to that effect. So I just want to ask you this question, right? With 2 wins under their belt, one in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, one in the MLS home opener, on a scale from we better win a trophy this year that you said last time to we could win all the trophies this year. Where do you land with your excitement? What's your level of excitement with this team?
I think that we still can win some trophies. I don't think we'll win them all, but I think we might win one. And that will be enough for this year of rebuilding to give us the confidence to get the depth that we need for the following years. But I believe that unless we don't win anything, and I don't mean supporter shield, no that. Like I want to win MLS Cup. I even go to conference champion. Okay, I take that. But any other than that, it should be a disappointment for me and for us, I think.
No, I'm all in on that, especially with the money they spent this off season. They have to get something out of it soon, especially with the depth they have compared to some of the other regular contenders. Talk about Columbus having maybe a little bit of a down year, at least until that summer transfer window hits. Inter Miami is going to be Inter Miami, but our depth should be better than them. So I agree with you. I think it's trophy or bust. Alejandro, one thing I want to ask you is, I know we've only seen 2 matches so far, but is there a player or maybe a couple of players that are showing up with unexpected performances, either in a good or bad way?
Yes. And before we get that one, I want to go back to the previous question. And just real quick. The problem is we got Tigres on Tuesday and we passed Motagua. So, that was a hard pick against one of the top team of the CONCACAF. So it's kind of for me when you say all the trophies, I'm like, I want to say yes, but it's Tigres winning only 2 games in the season. So that's a tough pick. And I understand that. I won't be disappointed if we lose against Tigres. I mean, it's a very high chance. Now, to go back to your question, I'm going to throw out also another point that I've been thinking about it when Brian sent me those topics. But since March of 2002, we have not had a left back. Alvaro Borreal wasn't a left back, was a forward that was made a left back. Powell, when he played in that one, he's a natural righty, so he's jelling. Jamil Assad was also a forward that was made a left back. And I can put the last 3 years, I can point out all of them. I would never had another natural left back.
Yep.
So when I see Engel, the by the way look like way older than he really is, they impress me the hell out of me. I was not expecting a guy that I know he played in the championship in England, but I was not expecting that much from him. Actually, I thought that I was mad. I said, "Well, we don't give Brett Housey and a chance." But I mean, he showed up 2 games. He's great going up. He got great connection with Evander. He's untireable. He never gets tired. You can see him going. Yeah. He goes to the left. He goes to the right. He goes to corners. And that got me start looking at it. And I said, well, why we didn't have that before is because we didn't have a left back in 3 years. So finally we got one. So Lucas Engel.
Quick follow-up question to your Tigres comment. Diego Lainez is on that team. Does Matt Miazga rush back from injury just to get a chance to showboat him again?
Every time you ask Matt that question, and Jose can tell you his story, he gets embarrassed. He gets really he gets a little not where he wants to be, but I'm sure he is back in. He will do it again inside the field. Now, outside the field, it might be a different story, but in the field, he got to do it, right? Have to do it.
Yeah, I did it when CST had a live show at Sam Adams Brewery. I believe they had Matt and Roman, and I went to talk to them, both of them. I thanked Matt, said, "Hey, your presence has made a huge difference in the back line, so thank you for being here. It's night and day with you here." And then right after that, I said, "Oh, by the way, I'm from Mexico." And he got embarrassed. He goes, "Hey, no." I said, "Hey, it's part of the game. I get it. No big deal." But as a Mexican, I kind of felt, well, I have to tell him that.
But yes, maybe he rushed back. I mean, the last time, a couple of weeks before Motagua game, Coach Noonan said that they were not ready. And yesterday, or a couple the conference before the game or after, he said it was closer. So maybe we see maybe a couple of weeks out with Orellano and Sergio. Maybe.
So there's a follow-up question. It's almost like a follow-up question, Alejandro. And Nick, I didn't copy you, by the way, because I didn't see your question until now.
Oh, you're good.
Alejandro, who do you think is going to be a breakout player over the 3 tournaments? I mean, we're talking MLS, CCC, Leagues Cup. Is there one player you think, this guy just might be a breakout player?
Yes.
If you have anything.
Oh, I will say the same thing I said on the live show. Gilberto Flores. He will be the guy that.
I thought you were going to say Corey Baird. I really did.
Oh man, wait. I'm not gonna say that one because so now I got Chris Marshall behind my seats, right? I got Chris Marshall and Brian from Grainwork, so they're behind me, and they just fun to listen to them talking because they told me that it comes the answer, and I said who? I said Corey Bird. I said like the answer to what? We didn't ask no questions. But no, I would say the same thing. I think Gilberto Flores is an outstanding defender, very secure with the ball. I think he was passed one time during the game. His passes were on point. He built from the back. Great communication. He doesn't speak English. Great communication on it. And I think to me, once he gets settled, in my opinion, if Miazga came back or comes back, I think that what had to come out have to be Hadivi. And you run Miles to the left side, put Miazga in the middle, Akin Gilberto on the right side. I think he'll be the breakout star this season. I think.
Yeah. So you think Robinson might slide to the left to keep out Gilberto Flores on the right side?
Yes. Yes. I think that the way he sees the game, I mean, naturally he's way aggressive, and once he's great with his feet too. I mean, his passes, he got a couple to Jelly from the back. They were right on target, and he never played in this cold, I guarantee it, or with a field that was that dry. And when you see those qualities on it from until it's a team that's dangerous. This is the second place in MLS. It was not easy to get Forsberg off the ball, and the forwards, they were gigantic, and he was there in every occasion. He answered great, opened up the field great. His passes from the back were great. Don't make it difficult sometimes. I mean, he kick it out when he have to, but I think he's a great addition to the team, and I think he will build up more once we get a couple more weeks of training and more games under his belt.
Yeah. You mentioned Flores, you mentioned Lucas Engel. It's fun to see guys back there. Not that we haven't in the past, but those two guys bring so much energy to that back line. I think Miles is pretty steady, and he does his thing. He's pretty steady. Matt, when he's out there, is barking orders, and he's a vocal leader back there. But Lucas Engel, it was so exciting and inspiring, I think, to see him get so angry when he missed that shot, when he cut across the middle, took it through ball. He was on the right side, just missed the left post. Yeah. To see his frustration just explode out of him. I loved seeing that energy from him and Flores back there. So I think we've got, we talk about maybe being thin on the back line again this season. We've got some guys that bring some energy and bring some spirit that is good to see back there that might, cover any lack of depth potentially, barring any injuries to those guys. They fight. Coach, you mentioned it earlier. They fight. They don't get outworked. They are going to outwork their opponents back there. I loved seeing that.
Can I jump in with a question for you, Alejandro? I'm wondering, because it sounds like you know a bit about Flores. I was really impressed with his play too for a kid. I thought he misread a couple of plays, and I thought he got a little exuberant and over aggressive, which created some opportunities, but that will come with time. I'm wondering if you think he has any opportunity, as we've seen Yedlin and Powell do in the reverse, where they fill in at center back to maybe fill in at a right wing back position because his passing was so excellent out of the back.
I don't know if he will go to the wing. I think he's the way that he viewed the game is from a center back position. I think he can slide to a back four. That I think that it's an option for the coach now to go switch for a back four now and get a little more aggressive in the midfielder, right? Especially with Orellano and Santos is aggressive. I mean, I get it. He's aggressive for 10 minutes, but he's aggressive. That's it's something that sometimes you need it when you gotta rotate formations depending on the opponent. So I think he can slide a line of four, but I don't know how great he will do in the wing side. I mean, I don't think he got that on him, and I'm gonna point that out because I gotta compare to what Engel did in the last minute of the game. I mean, it's 90 minutes. He's dribbling all the way to the end of the line. I mean, that was a PlayStation play. He dribbled 4 people and say, there you go, Denkey, get the second one. I just put it on top of it. But I wanted to go to Chirila so bad. I want that pass to go to Stephen. And it'll be great for the kid to start up 1 minute and score the second goal. But, I mean, that shows you how good physically that Engel is to get that play. So I don't know. That's my comparison. All with Yedlin, I don't see Flores be able to go that deep and come back with the same efficiency.
Yeah. Alejandro, before we get you out of here, just one last question, because we've got Motagua coming back up, right? We're playing at TQL on Wednesday night. The first match was 4-1 on the road for FC Cincinnati. We brought home the home opener against New York Red Bull. We've got Philly coming up this next weekend. What kind of rotation do you expect to see in this starting lineup versus a Motagua team that we've already, trounced 4-1?
Hey, it's no more dangerous opponent than the one that have nothing to lose. So if I'm Newton, I go with the best I got. I forget about rotation. You go game by game. You got to put the best you get and see how the game plays out before you start seeing all your starters. I mean, two goals from Ottawa in the first 20 minutes, and we'll start seeing a different game. And I don't really know if this team have the experience enough as a team to go there and control 70 minutes of, a blue cyclone coming to us. You know what I mean? Yeah. If I'm Noonan, I go out and close the game, and then I figure it out who I can rest out. I cannot just, think that I already win the game when it never happened like that in soccer. You see some crazy things, and you need a couple of things to build up a team. You need consistency, you need understanding, you need style of play, and you need unity on the team. And you don't want to get that in practices. You got to get, game fitness. You got to get game understanding. You got to learn how to have your players play on the game, not on the practice. And with that said, I think that he needs to come out and play with the best they got. If Evander can play 90 minutes, play him 90 minutes. He got a day to rest and then go to Philly and play. I mean, that's you. If you want to win trophies, that's the way to go. You cannot just pretend. Like, again, it's no worse opponent than the one that had nothing to lose. Motagua had nothing to lose. 0. They can go home with.
Yeah.
They've lost 3. They've lost 3 in a row.
Yeah. They can go 4-0 or they can go 2-0 or they can come on it. And okay, I know you guys talk about how nice we play and, how we win. But we were lucky a couple times too. I mean, Motagua could have easily be 2-0, 2-1 when we have a couple on the post. And Red Bulls have a couple of very dangerous play that could have changed the game. So I want to see Motagua come out hard. And if we're not ready, I don't want to be the bad luck charm. But I'm just saying that if you want to win, you got to come out with the best you got.
Yeah. It reminds me, Alejandro, a few years ago when Jaap Stam was coaching and there was no rotation in the lineup ever, and there were no trophies that we won there by leaving our best players in. So I think it depends on the players on the pitch, right? Evander might be one of those that's going to do that. Alejandro, Nacion FCC, just a little bit about your podcast and media and all of that stuff, right? It's a Spanish language podcast covering FC Cincinnati. Is there more to it than just your podcast? I assume you guys, you're on social media. I see your interviews and all that too, right?
Yeah, we do the coverage of it. And like I said, in Grainworks, we started when we approached the club. It wasn't me, probably the same like you guys. Somebody else started, and we kind of inherited at some point and keep it going. But they found the need to have the Spanish media, and then we approached the club. They said okay, and we've been building from there. But yeah, we have a Thursday podcast that we do in Spanish. So occasionally we do English too. I would love to have you there, and we talk down there, and we welcome all audiences, but mainly we have the Spanish, but we do interviews in English, and we publish everything around. We're on Instagram, but majority stuff our followers is in through Facebook, and we have done a few things up and down, but it's harder to do a lot of things with a little group, but we pulling the fight.
Yeah.
So
well, tell us where people can find you on socials, and then you've got a big announcement to make, I think, before you get out of here.
Yes, appreciate it. And we are in Nacion FCC in Facebook, in Instagram. We got a Twitter that we probably put up a couple news here and there. And we have we're gonna talking about Motagua, Cincinnati. We got a couple tickets that we're gonna raffle probably tomorrow with one of our followers gift us a couple of tickets. So for all those people that wants to go to the game and don't have tickets, go to our Facebook page tomorrow about 10 in the morning. I will be the details there. Something very simple. And I said probably at 4:00 I will announce the winner, so you can go there and watch that CONCACAF Champion Cup game.
All right. Well, Alejandro, glad to have you. It's great to have you on tonight. Hopefully we point some people your direction for Nacion FCC and the great coverage you guys have over there. And hopefully I win the tickets.
Hey, you got to start traveling today from Fort Wayne. So, but I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody. You guys having me over. It's always nice to talk to you guys. And yeah, anytime you want to do something, we're here. I can have you over. I know you guys start doing something Thursdays too. So we might have a company. We might do a dual one. We might do one program for both of us. So
that'd be great.
I appreciate it, guys. Invite.
Yep. And Alejandro, just some backstage talk here real quick. I'm going to put you back in the green room. If you could stay on for just a few more seconds to your video continues loading. Yep. And then I'll give you the thumbs up. And we just hate to lose you if we, end the broadcast and your video is not there. So if you could stay on for just a few more minutes, and we'll let you go. Thanks for being on.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it. Good luck.
Hey, thank you.
All right, guys. I want to talk a little bit about this rotation that, Alejandro says, leave our guys in, go for it. And part of me says, yes, let's do that. And part of me says, we got to rest because we've got an MLS game, right? We'll talk about that in a little bit more after this read from Beyond Exercise. It's a local physical therapy and fitness business that helps people stay active and injury-free. In fact, they help some of our local MLS Next, and FCC Academy players with their health and performance needs. Check out their suite of services on gobeyondexercise.com. We thank you for your sponsorship that helps us do what we do here at Cincinnati Soccer Talk. Coach, people love the tactics, right? We heard loud and clear this week on social media and through email the tactics that people love. Let's get into a little bit of a tactical breakdown of maybe what we saw in this match against Red Bull versus what we saw in the first match against Motagua.
Yeah, so Jose brought it up with his initial thoughts when he talked about the team play and kind of sharing the ball more players helping in ball progression. It's no secret that last year Lucho Acosta did the bulk of that work. I talked about how he not only played the most progressive passes, but he also received the most progressive passes, if you can imagine that. Well, the team came out in Honduras against Motagua, and when they were building out of the back, they did it with their 3 center backs and then 2 holding midfielders, and then pushed everybody else high. So it was basically like a 3-2 and then a line of 4 with the wing backs really high and Denkey up top. That meant there was no space in the midfield for those dual 10s, whether it was Baird and Kubo or Evander. They couldn't find space because it was really clogged in there. They came out in the first half against Red Bull, however, and they dropped a midfielder, usually Evander, but sometimes it was Kubo. They dropped them wide into that line alongside Buka and Wobodo to make it more of like a 3-3 buildup, or maybe even like a 3-4-3 buildup, depending on exactly where they were. What that did in the first half is it allowed those players, whether it was Evander, whether it was Kubo, usually Buka would be split out like wider to the other side. So it would be essentially the 3 center backs. And then you'd have like Evander and then Obi in the middle and Buka on the right in build. So you had 2 lines of 3, so they could swing that ball back and forth much more easily. And instead of having just center backs back there to progress the ball, they would have a midfielder able to do that. So they didn't progress the ball a ton out of there, but they really moved the ball quickly. And the beautiful part about that is then when we saw in the second half, Red Bull adjusted. They stretched those lines forward to try to account for that. So they had to really compact their lines, push both of their lines higher in their press, and it worked for a while. But around the 70th minute mark, FCC was then able to use that against them and start to play a little bit longer over the top. So you had, like in the 69th minute, Roman grabbed the ball out of the air and just ran up and punted it out to the left to Angle, who was running up the left, and he slotted Kubo in, who then tried to cut the ball back and won a corner. You had the goal. It wasn't really from build because it started more around the midline, but those lines of Red Bull were so compact that it allowed Yedlin to look up and cut that ball in behind for Denkey. There's another huge chance in the 78th minute where FCC played the ball back to Roman and he just kicked it long. It wasn't anything special, just heaved it towards Denkey. But Angle got on the second ball, and then from there he was able to play it quick, and he did his best Alvaro Barrial, Luca Orishano impression and actually popped up in the right-hand side of the box. And that's the one where he dragged his shot just wide of that far post from the right-hand side. But it all came because the tactical adjustment to move the midfielder back closer to the build, back closer to those center backs, worked in the first half, forced the Red Bull to tighten their lines, and that opened the long ball in the second half. So as opposed to so many teams just play it over the top of the press from the beginning and Red Bull just feast on that or try to stick with what they're doing, I thought it was really well done by Pat Noonan and the coaching staff, and it'll be interesting to see against a team like Philadelphia, who's also going to press, if they continue to kind of go back and forth between those two models.
Yeah. Jose, I know you've got a question here. I want to just follow up what Coach said there, because I wonder. I wonder. Pavel Buka had such a stellar performance in Honduras against Motagua, and this game he didn't disappear, but he disappointed a little bit in his play. Some of that, I think, tired, heavy legs from travel, but how much of that was a tactical move? Maybe to keep him back from going forward as much, or was he just not going forward because he was tired and they had to make that adjustment to hold that attacking mid deeper to the build up?
As you said, a little bit of both, but I honestly think a huge part of it was him being asked to do more of that work in building out. And Red Bull were still pressing, so it's not like he could just be picking progressive passes there. Like I said, mostly he and Evander in that first half, or when Kubo dropped in, were swinging that ball back and forth. Whereas in the second half, when we saw the substitutions and Buka actually slotted into one of those double 10s, that was the best portion of the game he had. He had a couple really nice moments where he received back to goal and laid it off, or was able to kind of get on the half turn and dribble. So I think that certainly there were some heavy legs, and some feeling out Red Bull. And I think the conditions, the dry field probably didn't do him any favors, because he's a player who's really good at passing and moving. So you want that ball to be moving quickly. But I do think that asking him to play a bit deeper in the first half was sort of like Pat Noonan knowing he was going to be putting the reins on him a bit, but only to open it up in the second half, which proved fruitful.
Yeah. Jose, you got a question?
Yeah, actually, I think it's more of a reiteration of what Coach just said. I mean, given that we don't have Lucho anymore, the tactics have changed, and they have changed in a way. Now we've got a real left wing back, a really good midfielder. Obviously, Denkey, even though he only scored 1 goal, he was really disrupting that back line. I mean, they were really worrying about him. And I think that probably then gave FCC, and I want to see what you think, Coach, more the opportunity to do those crosses that were not, that often in previous years. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head with it's a major difference. I'm not sure that it's tactical. I would really doubt, crosses are low percentage chances. I would really doubt Noonan is saying like, hey, let's go out and cross the ball more. But I think in Lucas Engel, you have a guy who plays that left wing back position, I think like a 6 would play in terms of he's looking for the openings to split those passes in. His crosses were not heaving the ball in from the touch line into Denkey for a header, right? He's cutting passes into Denkey's feet and allowing him to work from there. So I think you have a guy in Lucas Engel who's always looking for that. You have a guy in Kevin Denkey who, as you said, is always available for the ball into his feet in the box, getting those touches. And then I think another reason why there were more crosses was because Evander was having trouble like linking up with his teammates. You could tell he was getting frustrated. So he actually hit the most crosses of anybody with 6 and didn't find a target on a single one, although he was pretty close on a couple. But I think that was more frustration of him kind of trying to like not knowing exactly how to play those slick 1-2 passes with his teammates.
Yeah. Coach, we heard Alejandro talk about, never underestimating your opponent, number one, especially an opponent that has nothing to lose, right? Let's go back to the rotation a little bit in this lineup. That's something I think we need to talk a little bit more about because we saw a little bit of rotation between game 1, game 2. How much rotation do you think we will see in this game against Motagua? Do we come out with our best? Do we play some newer guys, some younger guys that maybe haven't had time, bring in the starters later? Because we're looking at a game, an Eastern Conference matchup against Philly on Saturday. And assuming things go well against Motagua, we have Tigres coming in at the 5-2-1 in league play, coming in hot to TQL Stadium that we need to be prepared for. What do you see in our lineup and our rotation in the next couple matches?
Yeah, it's hard to say what Pat Noonan will do because he's been kind of a wild card. We've seen him like against Cavalier last year throw out like a completely different lineup. He didn't use a single same lineup throughout the regular season famously, right? So it's hard to say what Pat will do. I will say as a coach, the conventional wisdom is you don't want to rotate more than about 4 players. And this is not even just because like you want to win the game, but it's because you're not putting the guys out there in a position to have success if you're rotating the whole team. So let's say you put Brett Halsey out there and you want to see what he's got. You want to get him some game time. Well, if you put him out there with a bunch of other guys who are all doing the same thing, they're not going to click. It's not going to be slick. It's going to make all of their jobs more difficult. So it's not doing any of them a favor. I think the good news for FC Cincinnati is they can do some of that rotation and not rotate more than 4 or 5 players because you have guys like Evander and Gilberto Flores who didn't play a ton in the first game who could take on heavier minutes. Usually the center back position, so like Robinson and Teenage, depending on how his health is holding up because he was coming off the pulled hamstring, you usually don't have to rotate those guys. So I would think you would see 2 of the 3 of the guys who have played up top in this last game. So Evander, Kubo, and Denkey, I would rotate probably 2 of them out. And then I would see rotation at the wingback position. Famously, we've talked about Lucas Engel and his work up and down that flank. And same with DeAndre Yedlin on the other side. He had two chances to score at the back post to score along with his defensive duties. So I would look for rotation there, as well as 2 of the 3 of those spots up top. And then certainly you have Brian Taonunga, who can absolutely do a job. So I'd be shocked if he didn't get a start for either Obi or Buka, depending on what their advanced metrics say and how far they've run and those sorts of things. So I think they're in a good position where they can rotate some without completely destroying things. And in terms of the team having nothing to play for in Motagua, you got to understand the away goals rule is in effect for the CCC, which means the 4-1 victory on the road means Motagua would have to score 4 goals to advance, because 3-0 only ties the score up for them in terms of on aggregate, and they would lose on away goals. So they're going to have to score 4 goals and shut FCC out to win outright. If it's 4-1, then we would go into some sort of extra time, right? And that, like, I cannot imagine even running out the entire FCC2 squad. I couldn't imagine that happening. Now, again, I would not do that, but I don't think you have to play it so safe that you're like, you have to worry about Motagua. The other thing to think about, though, is you're early in the season. Legs are still fresh, and you're still trying to work guys into fitness. So hopefully Pat and the training staff is looking at those metrics, seeing how far these guys have run, seeing how they're doing in training and things, and can piece together a squad that is not fully rotated, but there's enough rotation in there to get some guys new looks, a different look, and to not overdo it early in the season.
You mentioned Brian Anunga. I think that's a guy that's going to be very underrated as this season goes on, just because FCC really didn't have a traditional center defensive mid behind, Obi and Buka last year. So when, one of them went down, one of them got subbed out, you could tell the lack of depth there really hurt them. Anunga, I think, is a starting quality center defensive mid there. Coach, one last question I wanted to ask about tactics. There's been a lot of talk about, does FCC play 2 forwards up front? Do they go like 1 striker and then 2 attacking mids? Talk to me from the standpoint of somebody like Luca Orejano, who may come back and slide into either position. What's sort of the nuance between him coming back and playing as a second striker versus him coming back and playing as a second attacking midfielder?
Yeah, it's a great question, Nick. So I would first say, I try to say this a lot. I preach it all the time, that this whole idea of playing this sword formation or the knifey lion, whatever you say, as opposed to 2 forwards is really nominal. Like, Luca is pretty much going to play how Luca plays in terms of looking to get that ball in the half space, similar to what we saw from Kubo on Saturday, get on the half turn dribble, more than he is going to be leading the line or challenging in behind. That said, when you as a coach line your guys up in a formation, what you're doing is you're simplifying their job, and you're telling them what to do. If you're one of 2 forwards, you're looking at your forward partner and you're saying, if he checks to the ball, I want to challenge that back line so that they can't continue to collapse, right? If he is challenging that back line, I want to fold under and check to the ball. So there's an option, right? If you're playing as a dual 10, you're doing that same thing, but you're looking at your 10, your partner. So maybe it's Evander, maybe it's Kubo, maybe it's Corey Baird, but Oreshano is looking at that player and saying, if he is floating a little bit high, I need to sag back into the middle. But now the field is cut in half for me most of the time. I'm going to stay kind of on this side and look to find my space. He's going to stay over there. So it simplifies that job in terms of what he's asked to do as a more of a 10 than a 9. So I think it's nominal, but I do think it's not completely insignificant in terms of, as a coach, what you're asking players to do.
Coach, thanks for that. I think, just that insight on Oreshano specifically, I think we're going to see him in the next couple of matches is our hope, and to see what he does and what he brings to this offense, I think is going to be pretty dynamic because that's the kind of player he is. And I think it's going to change a lot of what we see in the, link up play moving forward, wherever he is, if he lines up at the top or, in the double 10 role. Coach, we do want to highlight the fact that though Talking Tactics may not be the podcast that it was before, that we do want to continue having you address people's questions that they're continuing to send in. So if you do have a question for Coach about something specific that happened in a match, or the way Cincinnati is lining up, or the way the formation is shifting from match to match, we would love to hear those questions. Send them in to feedback@cincinnati-soccer-talk.com. or hit us up on social media. We're on all of them. Let us know, send us your question, tag Coach in it. We'll make sure he sees it, he gets it. And you may even see some videos of Coach popping up here on social media soon, talking about some tactical takeaways from each match. So speaking of tactical takeaways, let's go off the field for a second and talk about the tactics of this roster build, right? Because we saw some big names come in. We've talked about this in recent episodes. We haven't seen Luca Orejano on the field yet, but he just signed a new 5-year deal that's going to keep him here for quite a while, we hope. and before maybe a loan comes around. Who knows what's going to happen at the end of Luca Orishano's time here, but he just signed a 5-year deal. FCC's opted for the 2 DP and up to 4 U22 format, at least until the summer window, is what's been declared for now. Do you see, well, we heard rumor of, as Nick mentioned, Brenner potentially coming back to Cincinnati, and then that was squashed as soon as it hit. About 12 seconds later, we saw Bogert post that's completely baseless. That's not true. Who knows what it is? Those are 2 reliable sources that opposing news came from. So we'll see in the coming days where that goes. But with this ongoing roster build, what do you see happening up until the summer window, and then potentially do we change something up in the summer window? Jose?
I'm really excited about the current depth, and I'll talk a little bit about where I see some holes in there, because for the first time since I can remember, all acquisitions performed really well or even beyond expectations. The 4 that were on the field initially. I still think we're a little, thin on the left side. I mean, we have Engel now, which is tremendous. But if he goes down, then, who, and we've talked about this already. So I think we're a little thin there. On the right side, Yedlin played really well. But can he go 90 minutes for the rest of the season? And I just don't think. And if he goes down, then who go? Okay, we got Powell. I mean, Powell came in there. He gave a lot of energy, played really well. But can he be really a starter if Yedlin goes down? So I think we're thin in terms of bench on both sides. Now, we got Orellano now for 5 years. Outstanding. Is he going to do a Luca on us? Not Luca, I'm sorry, an Acosta on us, 3 years from now and say, hey, I'm not really happy with this. I mean, that's a wild card. I'm not even going to speculate there. But it's great to have that stability. We got 5 years with him. So for me, I think maybe in the summer window, we start focusing on both left and right wings, because that's where we're a little thin bench-wise. Other than that, I mean, I'm seeing a pretty strong roster right now, and you've already said it. It's probably one of the deepest we've had. So I'm really excited. And I know that my predictions, by the way, were not that optimistic when we wrote those down. And more than anything, because, well, we'll talk more about this, because I think we still have to see how this team performs over the next few weeks.
No doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Coach? I think, Jose, you hit the nail on the head with the wingback position probably being the shallowest. What I would like to see is for the team to add some youth there. We talked about this 4 U22 2DP model. Well, there's only one U22 on the roster, and that's Gilberto Flores, right? Yeah. I would love to see them add some young wingers, like how they did with Alvaro Barreal and Luca Orishano, some high upside wingers who they can play in the attack, or they can also play as wing backs when you're chasing a goal, and also give Pat Noonan the opportunity to go every once in a while with a 4-3-3 or a 3-4-3 formation, because you have some wingers. That's where I would add if I could.
Yeah, and to your point too, not just kind of come in at the end of the game, but if something happens, if somebody gets hurt, or you're coming up in these tough batches of games, somebody that you can confidently put into the starting lineup to give somebody a rest, like a Lucas Engel or DeAndre Yedlin. So I agree with Coach. I would love to see them be more aggressive, with some of these younger attacking players. I still think that we should take a look at the striker position, or the forward position. Obviously, Kevin Denkey is a game changer. We've seen enough from preseason in the first 2 games to know that. I really hope I'm not jinxing myself, but he looks like the real deal. My question is, how does the depth behind him look? For instance, let's say Kevin Denkey is gassed in a 1-1 game. Is Sergio Santos the guy you come in to spell him and score that critical goal late in the game? Let's say, you rest Denkey, or he's on international duty. How do you feel about Yuya Kubo and Corey Baird being the finishers up top? Being the guys that kind of push that back line from that striker position. We're in a spot where you might want to look to say, yeah, we have depth at striker, but is it the right depth? And, you heard Alejandro say it. You heard Jose say it. It might be cup or bust this year. If you're Chris Albright, you might have to make a tough decision and say, okay, is there a U22 out there that maybe can give us more reliable, striking minutes similar to the style of play that Denkey is going to play more than a Corey Baird or Sergio Santos? And if so, you might have to make a tough decision there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You bring in a $16 million transfer in Kevin Denkey, and you start asking questions like that. Again, we're in a good spot. We've got that guy up top, but when he inevitably needs a rest, what do we have? I think you're right. I think Santos is good off the bench, right? I think he can do that, but do we again bring in younger guys, take a chance in the offensive, the attacking third might be the way to go. And guys, let's just say this. We've got some money to play with, right? We were a little tight. We were not roster compliant until just before the season started. And we're at what, $1.5 million, I think, that we can use in this summer window or leading up to it. So I'm excited about what this team can do in this roster build that Chris Albright and Pat Noonan have been putting together. We've seen what they can do. Again, just having a couple days in training together. And so we're excited to see that. Guys, we're going to get into our final thoughts, but before we do, I just want to throw it out that we've got all sorts of content coming your way from Cincinnati Soccer Talk on YouTube, on social media. We've got a great team behind the scenes putting out some great social media content. We would love to interact with you. We would love to hear from you. We would love to follow you and see what you're doing and what you're talking about as far as, FC Cincinnati goes. So if you like, we also have Patreon, and we're building that up. And so, if you're interested in joining in the Growler Cup, the Patreon subscription there, we're talking about all sorts of other stuff that we can provide on Patreon for you. So if you'd like to support Cincinnati Soccer Talk and making content like this and all the other content we're doing, head over to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. And then from there, you're able to join us on Patreon. A paid Patreon subscription, as I said, enters you into our Growler Cup competition, as well as some other great bonus content from CST. And I failed to mention last week, guys, Jersey Swap podcast. Jeff had a great podcast leading into the New York Red Bull match, and that's a weekly podcast. Be sure to check out Jeff Tebbets and Jersey Swap from there. Guys, let's get into our final thoughts. Jose, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I'm excited. I'm really, really excited about what we've seen in the first two games. Again, a lot of tests will come. The possibility of us winning some kind of trophy or even individual awards, I think, excites me. I still think the next couple of months are going to be a little rocky. Teams are going to be, well, they've already beefed up their own rosters. And we have a lot of games, as you said. So I still think we're going to have a rocky up and down the next couple of months. And that shouldn't despair us. We shouldn't say, oh, my God, it's not working. The team still has to gel. We still have to play some tough opponents, even though New York was a pretty tough opponent. Once Matt gets back, and if he's back to his 2023 form, and we have Orellano back as well, this is going to be a pretty fearsome team and very, very difficult to play against, even Miami.
That's a good take. Nick?
It's such a good take that I don't have a lot to add to that. I think what Jose said is pretty perfect. I think the big thing is just as fans, we're going to have to remember to have some patience in this first month of the season. It's a great start, a lot to look forward to. Again, I think when healthy, this is going to be one of the best teams we've ever had on paper, but we're not quite healthy yet. We still have Matt Miazga out there. We still have Nick Hagelin for center back depth. We still have Luca Orellano, who's not 100%. And on top of that, we still have new faces that are still working to gel with each other. So it's going to be a tough, first month or two of the season in terms of the schedule. I think we're going to see some big wins, big moments against good teams. I think we're also going to see some sloppy play and some cringe moments, maybe against some of the weaker parts of the schedule. So I think let's just ride out this first month or so, see how we look. And then I think April or May, we're going to have a real good idea of what this team can accomplish this year.
Yeah. Good take. Good take. I'm excited about where this team goes as we get deep in the season. Coach?
Yeah, normally I'm the one preaching patience and, rocky start, but it's going to be okay, guys. So I'm going to flip it on its head since my co-hosts here are doing those things for me. And I'm going to say, you don't spend this much money along the back line. I mean, you heard Alejandro say it, that he's expecting the U22 kid, Gilberto Flores, to be a full-time starter, which means you have a high TAM center back in Hadebe or whoever else sitting on the bench. You don't spend that kind of money to not be in every single game you play. Will it look rocky at times and will there be sloppy play? Absolutely. This team should still expect to win every game and then settle for draws sometimes when things aren't quite clicking up top. This team is built to compete at that level, to be able to lock things down in the back and say, hey, all we need is one clean over the top look and a Denkey Doink, and we're going to get out of here with the win because we're not giving up anything. The best chance of the night that Red Bulls had was that Choupo-Moting back heel. There wasn't even really a chance. It was like, because of where he was, it was a 0.55 XG, but it really wasn't a chance because he was facing away from goal. It would have been a spectacular finish. We didn't give up anything to the Red Bulls, and the Red Bulls are going to be a good team this year. So I say, sure, patience, sure, it's going to look ugly, but also I'm expecting to win every game and maybe have to settle for some draws. No losses.
Yeah. I love it. Usually I'm the really optimistic one, Coach, but I don't know that I'm going with all wins and maybe a few draws, but more power to them if they get there. I'm going to save my final thought, as it's a selfish one, to be quite honest, because I live so far away in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I don't get to Cincinnati a whole lot, but there's a chance. There is a chance my son schedules a college visit to a university in the Cincinnati area that puts me there on Tuesday when we could potentially be playing Tigres. So I'm excited to be in the stadium this early in the season with my hoodie and my winter coat or whatever I need to wear that night to see the FCC versus Tigres match. Guys, thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of the show. It's always fun talking with you and being part of Cincinnati Soccer Talk together. I do want to mention there will be a jersey swap promo on socials. I was going to put it in the podcast tonight, and we just ran out of time. So look for that on social media from Jeff Tebbets and a little bit of a preview and promo of what he's got coming up this week on Jersey Swap. Have a great night. We'll talk to you next week.
Have a good evening.